Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Niall O'Connell and special guest Punch Up Boxing's Ra Hokum. We are here to discuss the undisputed fight at Super Bantamweight taking place on the 6th of May in Tokyo. Naoya Inouye will defend his belt against Mexican's Nery in a fight that many of us are looking forward to. Inouye is seen as a pound-for-pound star by many, interested to see if he can keep the undefeated streak going, the KO streak going, and possibly move up to featherweight. But we'll see. There's a bit to discuss, gents, so we will crack on with it straight away. Ra, as our special guest today, I'll let you go first. Is Nery Inoue's biggest test at Super Bantamweight? Obviously, he's beaten Stephen Fulton, he's beaten Marlon Tapales, but there's other fantastic fighters there as well. Akhmadaliev being one, Casemiro is still hanging around. Of course, let's not forget about Liam Davis as well. Is Nery Inoue's biggest test?
I think he will be. And that's not by any means because I think Nery is the best opponent available for him. I think he's considerably inferior to someone like Fulton. But my views on this fight are more down to what I think and where I think Inoue is. Unthinkable though it probably is to most people. I think the timing of this and the psychology involved for both fighters at this point will make this Inoue's hardest fight. Yes, he's undisputed. He's running through everyone, but I think that last time out against Tapales, there were just a few signs that he might just be slipping half a step. Maybe not physically. I don't think it is physically, but I think psychologically, finally, in a way, he's started to believe his own press clippings, and I think he might have just lost a little bit of an edge. And for as long as I've followed this sport, there's been plenty of fighters that have seemed invincible, and usually they get beat when they start to believe it, and they get beat by someone who they were expected to run through. Julio Cesar Chavez comes to mind, Mike Tyson, of course, Roy Jones Jr. It happens to them all, and I do think Inoue is at that point, and I've gone on record saying pretty much after he beat Tapales, he'll get beaten in 2024.
Okay.
And because of that, I do think Inoue is going to be probably the hardest fight of his career so far.
Big statement. No, I think with Inouye recently, he's perhaps taking longer to stop his opponents than expected. I think Paul Butler being an example, where Paul Butler fought a certain way that fight. And Tapales as well. It took him until round 10 to finally get him out of there. I think a lot of people are expecting the stoppage to happen earlier than that. Now, I'll hand things over to you there. Do you see Nery as the guy who is Inoue's biggest threat at super bantamweight, or would you go with someone else?
It's an interesting question because on paper, I think he should be the obvious answer as to be kind of Inoue's biggest test in terms of the power. And I've always been someone who's been of the belief that to stop this monster, if you pardon the pun, to stop him, you have to be a huge puncher. And Nery is that. But I just think Nery himself has seen maybe better days. I think he will be dangerous in there. You know, someone with the heavy hands like that will always be dangerous. But I think I said it at the time when he fought Fulton. I think Fulton was the biggest test for him out there, just because of how well rounded he is. I'd say Nery is probably next after that. You know, as I say, the power, and he is quick. But Fulton for me just had everything to kind of give Inouye problems, and we've seen how we dealt with Stephen Fulton. But it is an interesting point actually what Ra said. I didn't expect him to say it, but when you think of it, you know, he didn't look his best against the Palace. He really didn't. Now, whether that's a case of, as Ra said, is he believing his own hype now, or did we all underestimate the Palace? Who knows? But if he's not 100% on the ball here anyway, it will be incredibly dangerous. You have to be switched on 100% of the time against someone like Nery.
Yeah, look, it was, and look, Don't know about you guys. I was very impressed by the victory over Stephen Fulton. If you consider it was his first fight at the weight, um, and I just the way he kind of won every round and then kind of got rid of him in the middle rounds. Yeah, I was extremely impressed. No, I'll stick with you here, Nery. I think there's fewer bigger challenges in boxing personally than going to Japan and beating Inoue. I'm interested to see if and when Inoue kind of comes out. I know he's fought outside Japan before, but if kind of maybe once if he is to have these fights at featherweight next year, if those fights take place in Japan or not. But I just think it must be a massive challenge to go there and beat Inoue in Japan. What does Lewis Nery need to do to win this fight? He's a big puncher in his own right, 27 stoppages and 35 wins. He's experienced. He's operated at world level before. He's just got the one loss on his record. I'll let you do this how you want to do it, whether you want to kind of talk about tactics or kind of mental state. But what does Lewis Nery need to do to beat Naoya Inoue?
Tactically, I think he has to dictate the pace right from the opening bell. He has to set the pace. He can't let Inoue dictate the pace of this fight, and that'll involve being the aggressor from the opening the opening bell, really aggression in Inoue's face, and just kind of not knocking back on his heels early. He has the power to do it, but he needs to do it early. He needs to hurt Inoue early, I think, because the longer it goes, the more comfortable Inoue is going to get, and it's going to get easier, I think, as it goes along. So I think Nery needs to. I don't like using the word because it sounds pretty ridiculous, but almost kind of bull rush him early and just really put it on him, volume punching, and yeah, hopefully he can hurt Inoue early in this one. But as we've seen before, Inoue has a hell of a chin. But it'd be interesting now to see up at 122. Can he take a shot off Lewis Nery? But we need to definitely find that out early. So yeah, aggression from the opening bell, and dictate the pace from there.
Fantastic. Ra, you've always got some interesting opinions when I'm sitting next to you at York Hall or Wembley Arena or other places. What do you think needs to be done here? How does Lewis Nery beat Inoue?
Actually, to some extent, I agree with Niall. Again, when you look at some of the fighters who've had their bubble burst, it's been with tactics that they didn't expect someone to come at them with. I remember Nassim Hamed when he finally got beaten by Barrera. All the talk beforehand, Barrera was saying, "On the pressure, pressure, pressure. He won't be able to handle the pressure." And then he got behind his jab and outboxed Hamed, used his better fundamentals. Similarly, what Niall said about Nery going straight at Inoue. I remember Mike Tyson in his prime. The logical, sense was that someone's going to have to evade him for 12 rounds. But Evander Holyfield met him head on and psychologically broke him. And again, I'm not saying that Inoue is just a bully or he's psychologically weak, but after so many fights of just having it his own way, I think a fighter can get accustomed to that. And I think if Nery does come straight at him, land some hard shots, I think that could psychologically throw him, even if it's just subconsciously. I'm not saying Inoue's going to sit there and think, "Oh God, I'm scared now. Someone's come to fight." It's subconscious because he's got so into the habit of having it all his own way. Some of the things you mentioned there, Niall, you're right. He isn't hitting as hard at super bantamweight. That's to be expected. Now, if there's question marks over Nery's punch resistance, I know he's been down a couple of times. Figueroa took him out. It was a body shot, though. But in the past, Nery, we know that he's not been meticulous with his prep. Most notoriously when he went to Japan and failed to make weight, and he's done that a couple of times. Just looking at some of his social media clips and what he's been saying in the build-up to this, I think he's just one of those guys that has decided, he's obsessed with being Japan's bogeyman, in much the same way Antonio Tarver was obsessed with, being the man who beats Jones. Evander Holyfield was obsessed with Mike Tyson. I just get that impression Nery is going to go all in on this. He is going to have to obviously have punch resistance. to take some shots. He's going to eat some against Inoue. But if he can and land his own shots, I think that is what's going to be key to psychologically then put just that fraction of a doubt in Inoue's mind for the first time.
Got a quick question for both of you. Do you think the fact that Nery's fought in Japan before and won is an advantage here? Because I can imagine Japan's the sort of place that maybe a lot of these guys, the likes of Stephen Fulton, perhaps haven't been to before, don't plan on going to again. It's not it's not the kind of everyone's ideal holiday destination. But do you guys think that's an advantage here? No. What do you think? Do you think that could play in Nery's favour? He's been to Japan twice, won twice.
I'm gonna probably keep it simple here, but say no, I don't, purely because of the savage that he's going to be in the ring against. You know what I mean? He's been there before, as you say. He is accustomed to Japan and fighting there, and like it's a surreal atmosphere, the Japanese fights. You know, with the crowd being so respectful and quiet. So to be kind of accustomed to that will help him slightly, but it doesn't matter where you're fighting anyway, whether it's Japan, America, or Mexico, anywhere else. It's a different level when you're in there, you know. So I don't think it'll help him too much going into this one now. Although the surroundings he will be accustomed to anyways, as mentioned. But now anyway, it's just he's just a league above anything else he's ever experienced before, really.
Right, what do you think? Do you agree with Noel? You don't expect it to be any sort of advantage? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts here?
In itself, no, but purely because it's Inoue, I think yes, because again, just feeding back into that psychological aspect where I think he relishes being the bad boy that has under Japanese boxing skin. The fact that they've had to sort of revoke the ban on him fighting there, all of that, I think it just adds to his own psychological preparedness to probably go, dig deeper into his world than he's ever had to, which is what you'll need to do to beat Inoue. So in that sense, I think it might help him. I mean, it doesn't help him on any sort of technical level, that sort of thing. And I somewhat, I don't buy into it much about things like atmosphere at the top level. I'm sure most of these guys, when you've operated at the top level, once you're in the ring, whether you're getting jeered or cheered, I don't think it has much effect on these guys.
Fair enough. All right. Coming towards the end, gents. Just a couple more questions. As always, would like to get some predictions from both of you. Just to make it clear, people who are watching, predictions change. This video is being recorded about a month away from the fight. Predictions might change on fight week, at the weigh-in, an hour before the fight starts. Who knows? But we're going to do some quick fire predictions, chaps. Ra, I will go to you first. What is your prediction at this stage for Naoya Inoue versus Luis Nery?
I've always got an off-key prediction when it comes to the superstars. Like I said, I think Inoue is close to, his Barrera moment, and I think this will be it. I think he's going to get shocked. Inoue will sort of stand toe to toe with him. It'll be pretty close, but I think he will get a narrow decision, maybe a split or a majority decision, which Inoue will probably go away saying he was robbed, but it wouldn't have been.
Interesting.
An almighty rematch.
It certainly would. Noel, I'll go to you. What are you going for this one?
That's a very interesting prediction to follow. Feel pressure now to live up to that pick, but I just can't bet against Inoue. I really can't. I think he's just he's one of the best fighters I've ever seen in my life in terms of how well-rounded he is. Boxing wise, durability and power. The ungodly power is just crazy. So I think like we mentioned earlier, what Nery has to do set the pace, be the aggressor. I think Inoue will avoid firefights with Nery. He's clever enough to do that. He's well skilled enough to do it. And I think he'll outbox him early and he'll be too sharp and powerful and he'll stop Nery late. 8 to 12 kind of down the stretch. Register another big stoppage for the monster for me.
Yeah, we shall see. Final question, gents. Do you want to ask kind of what basically is this going to be Inoue's last fight of the weight or not? Right, you're going for Nery, so I don't really need to ask you this question. I know you're going for Nery, and then for the rematch to happen, which should be fantastic for Nery if that happens. We shall see if your prediction comes true. So now I'll leave
That
things.
said, Elliot,
Yeah.
if I would say even if Inoue does the expected and wins comfortably, I expect him to have another fight against Akhmadaliev, and I
Okay.
expect him to lose that. But I do expect him to have at least one or two more fights at super bantamweight.
Fair enough. No, you're clinging on to the idea that Inoue's going to lose in 2024, and I love it. We'll see. We'll have to do another video if your prediction comes true. Niall, if your prediction's correct, Inoue does win. Is this his last fight at super bantamweight, or do you think he will move up to featherweight in his next fight?
I'd love it to be his last fight at Super Bantamweight. We spoke before, I think it was myself and yourself on a video, and we were discussing this as well. I think I'd have liked to see him move up after he fought Pales, to be honest, when he went undisputed at 122. I didn't think there was anything left for him to do. Even here he is a dangerous opponent, but the only two opponents that are kind of even worth it are Nery and Casemiro. So he's fighting Nery now. I expect him to get the win and move up to featherweight. And there's a lot of fascinating fights at featherweight. But in terms of 122, I wouldn't have an appetite to see him kind of hanging on there. I know as well, Liam Davis has definitely kind of earned a shot too. And I like Liam Davis, but I would not want to see him fight anyway. I think that only ends one way, and it's very badly for
Yeah.
Liam Davis. Yeah.
Yeah. I've just look, being cheeky here. I've just got one more. If Inoue does win on May the 6th and comes out and says, I've completed the super bantamweight division, whether that he has or not is debatable, but I'm moving up to featherweight. What's the one fight you guys would want to see? Obviously, Luis Alberto Lopez is maybe considered the best featherweight. There's Nick Ball, Ray Vargas, who obviously they both had a fight at a world title. Espinoza, who beat Robson Ramirez, is another fight. Ray Ford is a world champion. As Niall said, there's so many fantastic fights that could not. Yeah, there's so many fantastic fights that could be made at featherweight. That would be massive fights for Inoue. I'm going to ask for one name from both of you as we sign off. Ra, what would be the one fight you'd want to see Inoue at featherweight at?
Brandon Figueroa, see if he can break his heart.
Fantastic. And Niall, what about you?
Rafael Espinoza for me. I think he's big enough and powerful enough to cause an upset.
We'll see. We'll see. Well, he has to get past Luis Nery first. Ra, Niall, thank you both very much for your time. We will see what happens on the 6th of May in Tokyo. All the best.